catch us live. Someone was waiting on the scheduled live stream, but I've tried to use that scheduled one to come live to no avail, so it wasn't responding, so I had to come here. Let's see. Someone should come catch us live. Let's see, someone will catch us live. Just a person, just one person, and we're good to go. But if after a minute no one joins, we'll proceed. When you come online, you'll see our live stream. Oh, so it's a minute already. So let's dive right into why we are here. Let's dive right into it. So today we're discussing the actual difference between whole carbohydrates and processed carbohydrates. And in case you don't know what whole carbohydrates is, whole carbohydrates are carbohydrate-rich food that are still retaining at least 95% of the nation, that still have 95% of the nation intact, 95% of their structure, not really their morphological makeup, let me put it that way, that still have 95% of their morphological makeup intact. While processed carbohydrates, just like the name, are carbohydrates that have been processed, have undergone some level of some process, that has undergone some process, from blending to sifting out the fiber, that's the chaff, as we usually refer to those fiber as chaff, especially if you're processing something like maize. After grinding and sieving, you refer to that the one you sieved out, the product you sieved out, as the chaff. Okay, so but the chaff is actually what makes carbohydrate. That chaff, that fiber, is what makes whole carbohydrate. Whole carbohydrates still have its fiber intact. The fiber has not been blended. The fiber has not been it has not been um it has not been grounded. It hasn't been grounded. The fiber is still very much intact for whole carbohydrate. This is an example of whole carbohydrates. This is my potato. This is potato. I intend eating this with beans in the afternoon. This is our lunch for today. So I just brought out picked the potato out, right, for demonstration. So this is what we'll be having for lunch with beans this afternoon. So this potato is still, the fiber is still intact. Though if you're having diabetes or insulin resistance, you know that you should eat this in very small amounts. And the best way to eat it is allowing it to cool down, so the resistant fiber can be there while you eat it. All right, you allow it to cool down so that you eat more, as in that, so that the resistant fiber, in fact, so that the resistant fiber will be there while you eat it. Okay, if it's hot, the resistant fiber will not be intact while you eat it, but if you allow it to cool down, the resistant fiber will be fully activated while you eat it. But this does not have the fiber intact. Okay, the main difference between these two is that this one still have its fiber intact. This could have been extracted from this. This malt is of course rich in artificial sugar, and the artificial sugar that was used to prepare this could have been made from this. Yes, we know that it's from sugarcane, that they get artificial sugar from sugarcane and other sources, but we could actually pick sugar from here because this is a sugar rich food. What is this sugar? Sugar is just carbohydrate and water. sugar is carbohydrate and water. The molecular formula for glucose is C. Then in bracket, that C is for carbohydrate. Then in bracket you have water. Then the bracket is closed, bracket opens, C, bracket opens, you have water. Then bracket closes, you have the molecular number of the carbohydrates by the side. That's it, denoted by N, which is denoted by N. So if it's glucose, the N there should be 6. All right, and that's just what carbohydrates is. Carbohydrates is just like the name, hydrated carbon, or yes, hydrated carbon or carbonated water. That's why this kind of drinks, yes, is the soft drink that is usually referred to as carbonated drink, but this could also be referred to as carbonated drink. All right, because it's carbonated and it contains sugar. It's carbonated and it contains sugar. Sugar is just a combination of carbon dioxide and water. Those are the main components of sugar. Carbohydrates and water are the main components of sugar. And every plant-based food contains carbohydrates in different amount, in varying amount. There are ones that are rich in carbohydrate. There are ones that are not so rich in carbohydrate. But for the fact that every plant undergoes photosynthesis, all of them contains carbohydrates in varying amounts. Even beans contains carbohydrates. Beans, no matter the species of beans, contains carbohydrates in varying amounts. So the actual difference between these two food, this is our whole carbohydrate and this is processed carbohydrate. This also fall under the class of processed carbohydrate. Beans made with flour. Flour does not have any fiber. This also falls under the class of processed carbohydrates. So all these processed carbohydrates and carbohydrates, the actual difference between these two is that this one has its fiber intact, this one has been stripped of its fiber. And what this will do to your blood sugar is, if you take this, because there is no fiber, once you take this, glucose is water soluble, sugar is water soluble, and your blood is water based. It contains more of water. Your blood contains 70% water. So what this will do is that as you are taking it, it gets quickly absorbed into the blood. And once it gets absorbed into the blood, and because it contains high amount of sugar with no fiber in it, there will be no barrier in your digestive system to this getting absorbed. This will get quickly absorbed into your blood. And once it enters with that speed into your blood, it is rich in sugar. I've already said that over and over again. Once it enters your blood, it's gonna cause a spike in sugar level. And your body might not be able to cope with that spike, because if you eat this kind of food with the fiber, resistant fiber intact, you ought to eat your potatoes when it has already cooled down, so you activate the resistant fiber. What the resistant fiber in this potato will do after you had, and this one is just a free movement from the mouth down to the gut, all right, but this one you will need to masticate it, and masticating will take some time. You will need to masticate it. After you had masticated it, you will now swallow what you've the end product of the mastication. You will swallow it. Then when it enters your digestive system, the rate at which it releases its own sugar content is lower because it contains fiber. Fiber will slow down. That resistant fiber contained in your potatoes, in your cool potato. Let me emphasis on your potato that has cooled down. Yes, the hot ones still have fiber, but the resistant fiber is not there. Okay, so your potato that has cooled down how the body deals with it is that the sugar contained in it will be released gradually in a way that the body can cope with, that the body can stimulate the release of insulin that will mop up glucose from your blood or mop up sugar from your blood and take them to the muscles, to the adipose cells, to the liver that requires insulin to take up glucose. It's not all your cells that require insulin to take up glucose. There are cells that don't depend on insulin to take up glucose. That is why sometimes after feeding children with highly processed carbohydrates, you see them jumping around. They become hyperactive because the brain does not require insulin to take up glucose. And the brain is the organ that senses the presence of glucose and stimulates the pancreas to release insulin. The brain does not rely on insulin to take up glucose. So when you take this processed food, they go straight to your brain. And bombarding the brain with glucose all the time is a big problem. It's called glucose intoxication. When you are always, there is a reason why the body tries to maintain a homeostasis for glucose. There is a reason why the body tries to maintain glucose at a particular level. But if you keep bombarding your body with glucose, if you keep bombarding your body with glucose, you're going to injure your mitochondria. The same way that you know how you feel when you get drunk, you feel intoxicated, you stagger around. Okay, that's what happens to your cells when they get intoxicated with glucose. They respond irrationally to this intoxication, and this intoxication could lead to mitochondrial dysfunction. Many research have it that diabetes and pre-diabetes are cases of mitochondrial dysfunction. Right? You don't want to keep eating in a way that jeopardizes your health. Diabetes is not something that happens immediately. It's not something that it takes a while before you become diabetic. It takes a long time of living with insulin resistance before you become diabetic. And the the interesting thing about this whole thing is that metabolic syndrome is becoming very common. Many persons are living with it without knowing it. Insulin resistance is becoming very, very common. Many persons think they are healthy while they are not. When I did a research in 2020, I found something astounding. I found something very surprising. It was a surprise to me when I assayed premenopausal and menopausal women. I found something striking that premenopausal women, some of them have insulin resistance, and it became a concern to me. It became a very big concern, and that's part of the inspiration behind the creation of this channel. Because normally in premenopausal period, a woman is not supposed to have any issue with her carbohydrate metabolism or even lipid metabolism because of the presence of estrogen. Estrogen kind of confers some protection on younger women. It confers both, it protects the heart, it protects even your metabolism, because estrogen will help your cells to take up glucose, it helps your cells to express insulin receptors better, and it also helps your pancreas to secrete insulin very well. So this confers some level of protection on premenopausal women. But when I found out that some of them were already having this insulin resistance, obviously due to lifestyle, because I cannot attribute that to genes. I cannot attribute it to genes. The major thing that I linked that to is lifestyle, because from the field questionnaire, when I questioned them via written questionnaire, I found out that their eating habits is nothing to write home about. They don't eat healthy. Their meals are based on processed food mostly, and artificial sugar. They eat some of them eat soft drink in the morning with meat pie, in the afternoon the same thing, because most of them are boarding students, so they eat unhealthy, they eat too unhealthy. So I couldn't attribute that to any other thing other than lifestyle. Though I'm yet to do an in-depth research on that. I hope to do another research that will cover women generally, not just menopausal women, but women generally. Let me really understand what is happening to women in my area. I know there are research already in that area, but I want to do one in my area. So we don't attribute these things to um um what's it called now, to location, maybe because these people are based in so 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 and so place, and they are more prone to these things. That's why I want something they can, people here can relate with, people in Nigeria can relate with, people, women in Nigeria especially can relate with. So I'm going to do a more comprehensive research that covers women generally, to analyze the prevalence of metabolic disorders among women. That's the next research I'm planning to do, either ending of this year or by next year. If I'm able to get funding, then I'll do that this year. If I'm unable to get funding, I'll still do it. I love doing research. I love to find things out by myself. So even if I don't get the funding that is required to foot the bills, I'm still going to do it. I'm still going to do it. So the this thing is crazy. Honestly, it's high time you start paying attention to what you eat. If you don't have insulin resistance, there is no way to know if you have insulin resistance or not if you don't go to the lab and evaluate yourself, if you don't go to the lab and get yourself checked. All right, there is no way. Start with doing a fasting blood a fasting plasma glucose. Okay, start with checking your fasting plasma glucose level. Do that tomorrow. Schedule to do it tomorrow. Okay, don't wait after. Now that someone has brought it to your attention, someone has called your attention to this thing, try and do it unfailingly tomorrow. Schedule to do it tomorrow. Get to know your fasting plasma glucose level. That will give you an idea of how healthy you are metabolically. Though, especially for women, that does not rule out insulin resistance. It does not rule out taking your having a normal fasting plasma glucose does not rule out your does not rule out it doesn't rule you out from having insulin resistance. For instance, me, I've before I did that research in 2020, I've been checking my fasting plasma glucose, and it has never gone beyond 70 something. But I was stunned. I was surprised. I was taken aback when I did it, because I had to do my own alongside the other samples I collected in that 2020. I was surprised when I found out that my insulin is already offshooting. I had to start doing something about it, and it helped me to really connect insulin resistance and PCOS very well. I am a victim of PCOS, and since I found out, I've tried to eat healthy. I've tried to, and that's the inspiration behind advancing my career in chemical pathology. That's the inspiration behind furthering my studies in chemical pathology, because I wanted to find out. There are so many questions that condition raised in my mind that I needed answers to. I was not getting the answers from Google. I wasn't getting the answers I needed to get. I wanted to get answers myself. So that's what encouraged me go for to advance my studies, to further my studies in chemical pathology. So and I did something relatable. The only difference, the actual difference between menopause and PCOS is the fact that in menopausal women, the ovary has atrophied. But in PCOS, the ovary might still be intact, just that it's not releasing matured eggs the way it ought to release matured eggs, or the eggs are not maturing well. Okay, and I've read stories online of women with PCOS, who transitioned to menopause prematurely because of that link between PCOS and menopause. Okay, I've read stories of women who transitioned within a short while of seeing their period to menopause. The PCOS has so many varying symptoms, and the way it affects individuals differs. And that's called premature ovarian insufficiency. All right. They transition from that to having premature ovarian, and then to hitting menopause. Some of the women I read their stories were financially okay to opt for other means of other fertility options, and they were able to get one, two of their own kids. But then, if you can pay attention, especially women, if they can pay attention, men are not left out. Why I emphasize on women is because my work is I base my work, most of my research work focuses on women. But men are not left out. The protection that women have when they are younger, men don't have that kind of protection. Men don't have that kind of protection. Okay, that's why men are more prone to hypertension, they are more prone to heart diseases, they are more prone to even diabetes when they are younger. But once a woman once a woman hits menopause, the the story changes. Women loses the protection conferred on them by estrogen. That's why premenopausal women having insulin resistance became a concern to me, because they are not supposed to have it because of that estrogen. Because they have estrogen, the estrogen intact, they have normal level of estrogen. And I'm linking these to two things: either that the prevalence of metabolic syndrome is increasing, or that the prevalence of PCOS is also increasing. PCOS is also a case of metabolic issue, is a metabolic disorder, is a case of metabolic issue. And if a woman is metabolically unhealthy, that could predispose her to PCOS. PCOS have so many risk factors. Gene is one of the risk factors of PCOS, but there are other risk factors like obesity, lifestyle, environmental toxins, and the rest of them. Because our environment is filled with mess, and we rub mess on our body, we use mess to cook, and all these things disrupt our hormones and make us vulnerable to some of these conditions. So I hope that this video is able to enlighten someone on the difference between whole carbohydrates and processed carbohydrates, so you choose wisely. You make your food choice wisely. Okay, go for food whole carbohydrate. If you don't have insulin resistance, go for whole carbohydrate. But if you already have insulin resistance, it's advisable you cut down on your carbohydrate intake. All right, so in October, from the 8th of October, I'm going to be doing something very interesting, because this research struck me in a way, in a very, well, I say painful way now, in a way that triggered something in me. So I'm going to be doing an elaborate talk on PCOS starting from October 8th of October till 21st October. I'm going to be doing an elaborate talk on PCOS. I'm going to be exploring so many symptoms of PCOS, and educate women on how they can help on how they can help themselves, educate women, enlighten women on how they can help themselves taper down the symptoms of PCOS. Stick around for it. 8th of October. It's gonna happen here, right here on this channel. See you in my next video. Of course, I'm not going to wait till 8th October before releasing another video. So see you in my next video. Catch you. I don't know how to do that. I hope I got that. Catch you. All right.